actually the background music is Hello, good day and welcome to the first joint webinar of the University of the Philippines School of Library and Information Studies and the Faculty of Information Management of the University Teknologi Mara. This is just one of the many collaborations of these two universities in the future. This afternoon, we will have two interesting lectures from esteemed faculty members of UP SLIS and UiTM. The first lecture by Professor Paul Jason Perez from UP SLIS is entitled Getting Data from the Web, Web Scraping with Python. The second one by Dr. Farrah Diana Saiful Bahry of UiTM is entitled Web Archiving. We welcome students and teachers of library and information science and information professionals in the Philippines, Malaysia, and across the globe. I am Rhea Rowena Apolinario, a faculty member from UP SLIS and a PhD candidate from UiTM, your host and moderator for the webinar. Before we proceed, please take note that our webinar is in high definition or HD. For a more pleasurable viewing experience, please check and adjust the settings of this live stream to HD. You may also take the opportunity to check the audio and adjust the volume to a comfortable listening level. This webinar can be seen live on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, UP SLIS, along with our online talk show specials, namely For the Record, Faculty Room, and Digital Scholarship Series. These are all part of our journey on the road to 60, looking forward to the 60th anniversary of UP SLIS in July 2021. Definitely, this webinar will be another fruitful learning experience for all of us. But before our talks, allow me to explain the mechanics of this webinar. We will be having successive presentations from each of our two esteemed speakers. If in case you miss portions of this webinar, you may view this as a Facebook video or check our YouTube channel at UP SLIS. If you have any questions during the lecture, you may post your question by going to www.menti.com and typing in the code 1553156. As you type in your question, please include the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed to. All questions will be tackled in a question and answer portion after all two of our speakers have presented. Please take note that we will not be entertaining questions posted in the comment section of this video. Again, you may post your question by going to www.menti.com and typing in the code 1553156. The website and code will be shown on screen throughout the lecture. At Menti.com, you may view the questions posted by our other viewers. If a question you wish to ask has already been posted, please upvote the question by clicking its thumbs up icon so we can prioritize and address it first. We will be issuing certificates of participation to those who will be joining us in the live event. We ask that you finish the webinar and watch out for the announcement containing the link to where you can register for your certificates. As part of the requirements for the certificate, you need to answer 2 questions correctly. We advise that you listen intently to the speakers as they deliver their lectures. You can rewatch the video and try again if you answer incorrectly. For registered professionals, this webinar may be applied for continuing professional development or CPD as a self-directed learning activity. Again, please stay with us until the end of the webinar for instructions on how to get your certificate. To formally start our joint webinar this afternoon, may I call on the Dean of the Faculty of Information Management of Universiti Teknologi Mara, Professor Dr. Sohaimi Zakaria, to give the welcome remarks.
Thank you, Professor Rhea. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It is with great pleasure I welcome you to the first joint international webinar organized by the School of Library and Information Studies, University of the Philippines, and the Faculty of Information Management, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. First of all, let me convey my heartfelt gratitude to the Dean, Professor Grace, and her team for their kindness in partnering with us to organize this auspicious event. It embodies a mutual friendship that both our schools have long aspired to build, let alone being members of the iSchools Consortium and the Asia Pacific iSchools. Thank you, Dean Grace, and all friends at UP SLIS. My special thanks go to everyone who is in this meeting room this afternoon for tuning in to listen to the presentations by two young and talented academics who represent both our schools. Thank you all, and to Prof. Paul Jason and Dr. Farrah Diana. I hope that this first small initiative will lead us to working closely together on many more mutually beneficial activities in the years to come amongst our staff, students, and alumni. I also thank colleagues from both schools who have worked so hard to ensure the success of today's session. I wish you all a fruitful webinar, a truly educational one. Terima kasih. Salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dean Sohaimi. We are really looking forward to more collaborations between UP SLIS and UiTM. For those who have just tuned in, this is the joint webinar of the UP School of Library and Information Studies and the Faculty of Information Management of Universiti Teknologi Mara. We are fortunate to have with us faculty members from these universities. Our first speaker is Professor Paul Jason V. Perez. He is a full-time faculty member of UP SLIS, teaching introductory ICT, programming, and foundations of LIS. Prior to joining UP SLIS, he worked as an ICT associate in UP Information Technology Development Center and was involved in the implementation of a university-wide information system. He finished his Master of Digital Information Management from the University of Technology, Sydney through the Australia Award Scholarship. Our second speaker, Dr. Farrah Diana Saiful Bahry, is the head of the Center of Studies in Informatics and a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Information Management at Universiti Teknologi Mara since 2009. She also had working experiences for almost 7 years in several ICT divisions of Malaysia government sectors. Her subject areas of teaching are in the fields of web design, database application, and web archiving. Dr. Farrah Diana obtained her PhD in 2018 in website credibility and web user engagement from Universiti Teknologi Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and holds a Bachelor of Science degree of Information Studies, Information System Management, and Master's degree in Information Technology from UiTM. Since 2010, Dr. Farrah Diana has been active in research and publications in several fields of studies, which include information system management, web users' behaviors, tertiary educational studies, and web content management. Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed speakers from UP SLIS and UiTM. Happy learning to us all!
Thank you very much, Ma'am Rhea, for that introduction. Hello, everyone, and salamat tingahari to our Malaysian viewers. My name is Paul Jason Perez, and I will be talking about getting data from the web or web scraping with Python. When I was doing my research for my master's, I had the enormous task of gathering data, and the data that I was looking for was available on a government website. The data that I needed is text data, and unfortunately, there's no way for me to collect the data unless I copy it manually and then paste it in a spreadsheet. And that would have taken me forever. Fortunately, I was introduced to automated tools by one of my professors. Her name is Kelly Toll. So she taught me how to use codes or scripts to perform web scraping. And that helped me finish my research, which eventually helped me finish my degree. So I'm here today because I want to share with you what web scraping is. And web scraping isn't really something that is new. In fact, in 1993, an MIT researcher named Matthew Gray developed the first software or bot to gather data from the web. And what he wanted to do was he was trying to measure the growth of the web. And he was able to do that by writing a piece of software that copies details from all of the available websites. So, web scraping has been done for more than 20 years, and also search engines such as Google are they're doing it. But what is different now from 25 years ago is that we now have more tools. Whether you're a programmer or not, there are tools that you can use to scrape data off the web. And also, the amount of data that is available or the digital footprint available on the web is so vast. And this is something that we should take advantage of as information professionals. So, what I hope that you will learn by the end of this presentation are first, I want you to have an understanding of what web scraping is, when you can do web scraping, or when you should do web scraping, and also to see who are the ones using web scraping. But most of this presentation will be focused on how to do web scraping. So I want you to have an idea of how you can actually do it. And then finally, I want you to think about the important questions when doing web scraping. Is it legal? Is it ethical to do? And as information professionals, what can we do to take advantage of this technology? Okay, so Wikipedia defines web scraping as the act of copying data from the web, but using automated tools. So if you are manually copying text or pictures or tables from websites and then pasting it to a spreadsheet or a Word document, imagine doing it in an automated fashion, and that is web scraping. There are a lot of terms that are being used synonymously with web scraping, such as web harvesting, data scraping, web extraction. All of this pertains to the automated way, whether you're using proprietary software or you're using a piece of code to copy data or information from the web. And I guess the first question is, when can or should you do web scraping? What are the things that you need to consider before you even begin to do web scraping? Well, the first one is, does the website allow it? The website where you see the data that you need, do they allow you to scrape their data? Well, in order for you to find out, what you need to do is to look for the robots.txt. So the robots.txt is a file available in the server of these websites. And in order for you to look at it, what you can do is to go to Google and then type in the website followed by robots.txt. For example, this is the robots.txt for eBay, and as you can see here, it says in the text file that the use of robots or other automated means to access the eBay site without the express permission of eBay is strictly prohibited. They further stated that any other use of robots or failure to obey the robots exclusion standard set forth at this link is strictly prohibited. Although eBay allows you to copy or scrape some of its data that are available publicly, there are some limitations. That is the same with Wikipedia, for example. So if you look at the robots.txt for Wikipedia, it states here that please note there are a lot of pages on this site, and there are some misbehaved spiders out there that go way too fast. Basically, what Wikipedia is saying that yes, you may copy the information or the data available from our website, but you have to do it in a respectful manner. So we'll discuss more about that later. The second question that we need to ask is there an API that is available? An API is an application programming interface, and you can think of this as a set of rules that users or robots that they need to follow so that they will be allowed to interact with the data being held in those websites. So these are commonly available from social media sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Let's say you wanted to scrape all of the tweets of Donald Trump. In order for you to do that, you need to use the Twitter API so that you can download all of his tweets. You are not allowed to write a piece of software or a code to scrape all of those data, and it depends on the amount of data that you need. As a free user or as a under the free account or a free tier, you can only download a certain amount of tweets or hashtag. But if you're a premium user or if you're a business entity and you're paying for a service, then you may download more. So that is one way or a revenue for these social media giants. And then finally, you also have to ask, is it feasible? Is this something that you can do? Because there are some websites or web pages out there that are badly written. Like, as you can see here, this is like web page, a relic of the past. It used to be that web pages were written badly. There were no structure, and developing a code might not be worth your time. So you need to think if it is something that is economical to do in terms of your time and effort. Nevertheless, when you found websites, especially government websites that are rich in data and have well formed HTML, then web scraping can be a powerful tool at your disposal. And nowadays, um, people from the journalism industry are using web scraping to do data journalism. So, web scraping is one of their tools to report about the government spending or monitor the COVID cases. So, data scraping or web scraping is very popular, especially among the journalists. When you have decided that web scraping is what's needed for you to gather your data, I recommend that you follow these steps. First, you have to analyze the web page. This involves looking at the HTML structure to see what data can be extracted. Then, next, you have to strategize. You need to decide whether you're going to code the scraper yourself or you're going to use automated tools. And then finally, you have to implement it. During this step, you need to consider where you're going to store your data and in what format. Let us start by looking at a simple web page involving cats. This is a simple website that has a title My Cats. On the top portion, you can see that there is a banner and it says, Meet my cats. They're all cute but a little naughty sometimes. And if I scroll down, you can see that there are what we call cards. Each card contains pictures, names, and descriptions of the cats. And there's also a button that will lead us to more details about the cat. So I can see here a bigger picture and a table containing the name, the age, and the weight. So this structure of a web page or website is commonly known as the list and detail views. So the list view is where you can see all of the records available, while the details view will give you more information about that record. This is commonly used among e-commerce websites. But to really understand how the HTML is arranged, what we can do is to inspect the element. What I'm using is Mozilla Firefox, but if you're using Google Chrome, you can do something that is also similar. Just right click on the browser and then look for something that says inspect or inspect element. If I click on that one, it will show up at the window that has the codes for my HTML page. So an HTML is really just a hierarchical document made up of elements and tags. At the topmost level, you can see that our HTML document is made up of two elements, the head and the body. Inside the head are the metadata, the title, the link, and other information about the web page that we don't normally see when we're looking at the browser. The things that we see are commonly found inside the body. And if I expand this tag, you can see that currently there are two elements. Both of them are using the div tags. The first element contains the banner that has a heading tag and a paragraph tag, while the second element is a container that has all the rows and the columns and the card until I get to the picture, the name, and the description. So as you can see, the arrangement of our HTML document is really hierarchical. Each node can have a child, those child can have siblings, and the innermost part is the content. And in this case, it is a text. If you also look at the details page, you can see that it is almost similar to the list view. At the body level, there are two elements, the Jumbotron class and the container class. And inside the container, there are also two elements, the image of the cat and a table. So inside the table, inside the table there is a body, and inside that body there are three rows. The rows are the ones containing the header and the data. So that is how we analyze the structure of our HTML page. It is important that we have a fundamental understanding of how HTML documents are arranged so that we can effectively extract data from it. Now that we have seen and analyzed the structure of the HTML, we can now decide on what tools to employ. And although the website that you've seen is quite simplistic, this is actually a good starting point for you to be able to write codes for bigger and more complex websites. The data that we'll be looking at are the following: the name, the description, the picture, the age, and the weight. So let us now start writing some code. The tool that I'm using is called Google Colab Research. This is a cloud based Jupyter notebook that allows you to type in or to code Python easily. So the first step that we need is to get the required packages or libraries that will help us do the web scraping. So let me do that. Okay, so what I just did is I imported the request library, which is a built-in Python library, and the beautiful soup library, which is an open source and free library developed for parsing or web scraping HTML documents. The next step is that I need to get the actual HTML page. So let me also do that. So what happened here is that I declared a variable called HTML, and then I assigned the value that will be returned by this method request.get. So what's happening here really is that we are sending an HTTP request to this URL, which is our test website, the CATS website, and whatever the response from that website will be stored and saved in HTML. So as you can see, when I printed the value of HTML, it is a response of 200, which in HTML means a successful response from the server. So we can now actually look at what's inside this HTML variable or HTML object. If I print out the text, you can see that this is actually the web page that we analyzed earlier. However, this is a mess. Actually, this is a string or a soup of characters, and this is very difficult to extract data from. That is why we need the beautiful soup library to transform this mess of a soup into a beautiful soup. So in order for me to do that, I need to declare something, a variable that will uh, hold the value for the transformed HTML text. So let me just do that. I mean soup, not soap. But it doesn't matter because it's just the name of the variable. Okay, so as you can see here, there is now a difference. This soup is more organized compared to the HTML text we had earlier. And if I look at what the data type is, so if I type in or if I use the built-in function type and check the type of HTML.text, it tells me that it is of type string. But if I check the type of the soup, it is a beautiful soup object. And what this means is that we can now traverse or navigate this soup object. For example, if I type in soup.body, I can access the body portion of the HTML. Similarly, if I type in soup.body.div, it will give me the first div tag or the first div element that it encounters. If you can remember earlier when we are analyzing the website, we saw that there is a division with a class Jumbotron that has the banner that says "Meet my cats." They are all cute but a little naughty sometimes. I can also try to access the P tag. Beautiful Soup has now allowed us to navigate the HTML document to extract a specific element that we need. There are other functions available in Beautiful Soup that can make data extraction systematic. So let's get back to it. One function that can help us look for a specific data is the find function. So let's try this. If you remember earlier, when we are looking or examining the cat website, all of the important details that we need can be found inside the div element that has a class of card. So what happened here is that I declared a variable and I name it as card, and I get the value, or I look for the div element that has a function or has a class of card. And I was able to do that by using the find function. And with this, I can now access, for example, the image along with its source attribute. So that is the picture file or the link to the picture. I can also access the name by looking at this HTML code. I can see that the name is inside the H5 header. So I can type this. And then if I want the description, that is inside the p tag. So I can access it via card.p.text. And then finally, in order for us to get to the details page where the age and the weight are, we need to get the link in the anchor tag. And we can do that by accessing the card.anchor tag and then accessing the href or the hypertext reference. There you go. So at this point, we were able to extract an individual, uh, in an individual level, the different data that we need for a cat. But what we really need is to extract all of the details for all of the cats. So there is another function called find all that we will be using. So let me do that. Okay, so what happened here is that I declared a variable called cards and I used the built-in function find all to look for all the div tags that has a class of card. And what I got in return, or what I get in return, is a list, or what you can also call as an array of objects. This is the first card. All of the cards are separated by a comma. So this one is Sam, this one's Jacob, this one's Bubbles, this one's Dexter, and so on and so forth. But our main objective is really to extract the data. So for us to be able to do that, we need to declare a container where we'll be putting those data. So let me declare some collections or collections of variables. Okay, so what I did here is that I declared some empty variables. These are called empty list. where we'll be putting the details later. So now what I need to do is to go through this list of cards and then extract the needed data and then save it to these empty variables. And I can easily do that with a for loop. So let me just do that. So if you can remember a while ago, in order for me to extract those information, I am accessing the HTML tags and elements. And in order for me to extract the name, I need to access card.h5.text. For the description, it's card.p.text. And that is what I'm doing here. For the pictures, I need to access the image, and I need to access the attribute, the source attribute of the image tag. And finally, for the links details, I need to access the anchor tag of the card, specifically the hypertext reference attribute. So if I run this for loop and check the variables, it should now have the data that I'm looking for. So we have the names, the descriptions, the pictures, and then finally the links that will lead us to the age and the weight. At this point, we have extracted most of the data that we need. And you may want to consider how you're going to store this data. And in Python, there are built-in libraries that you can use, such as the CSV package, to assist you in saving and storing your data into a CSV file. Let's try that. To save my data to a CSV file, I need to import the CSV package first. Then after that, what I need to do is to create a CSV file that I can write my data to. So let me just type that in. Notice that when you're using Jupyter Notebook, there are some suggestions that you can, or auto suggestions. It's very helpful whenever you don't memorize the actual code, because it's impossible for you to memorize all of these codes. So what's happening here is that I declared some variables that will be the pointers to the file that we created. And specifically in this line, uh, we opened a CSV file called mycatsdata.csv with the right mode enabled. So what I need to do first is to write some header. So I can do that by typing in CSV writer dot right row. Uh, the first column can be the name, followed by the description, then the picture, and then for now the links. Now that we've written the header, what I need to do now is to iterate through these different variables. Thank you very much, Ma'am Rhea, for that. Thank you very much, Ma'am Rhea, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Okay, so at this point, you now have seen how we can extract data and save it into a CSV file. There are, of course, other tools out there that we can install or add as an extension to your browser to scrape websites. But honestly, I would prefer to write my own code because it gives me more flexibility. And if you try these other software, you actually have to uh, look at their tutorial to use it. It's not that user friendly. And also, some of these services you have to sign up and pay for premium services. You may have noticed that we have not extracted all of the data that we need for our cats. We forgot to extract the age and the weight. I leave that to you as an exercise so that you can practice scraping websites. If you want to continue writing the code, you can access it by going to bit.ly/scraping cats or by scanning this QR code. You can also visit the CAT website for practice. That is through bit.ly/scraping cats website. The basics that you have seen earlier will be your foundation if you want to scrape more complex websites. Like, for example, let's take a look at the Philippine e portal or the Philippine Freedom of Information portal. Portal or the EFOI portal is a website where citizens of the Philippines can submit their FOI request, and these are open to the public so that they can look at the request and monitor the status. And we can also view the requests being submitted to specific government agencies. And currently, there are now 41,433 requests or for I hope that you gained some ideas on how to do web scraping. Now, let's ask the important questions. Is web scraping legal? I am not a lawyer, but according to the Global Investigative Journalism Center, it is legal to do web scraping and it is actually a normal activity being done, especially by journalists, on a day to day basis. However, there may be some instances wherein the actual act of copying the data may lead or may be interpreted as breaking the law. For example, in the Philippines, we have the Republic Act 10175 or the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, And in section 4, they defined system interference as the intentional alteration or reckless hindering or interference with computer networks or computer systems without the right or authority. So, for example, if you're trying to scrape a government website, a government server, and you're trying to send a lot of requests, it may lead to an overwhelming of the traffic of the server, and it may lead to the servers to shut down. So that can be interpreted as an attack, specifically a DDoS or a distributed denial of service attack. Now, even if you are legally allowed to do it, the main question now is it ethical for you to do so? Luckily, the Data Journalism Handbook provided some general guidelines that we can follow or questions that we can ask whenever you are performing web scraping. The first one would be identifying yourself or your purpose, why you want to copy that data. In journalism, it is a common practice to identify yourself as member of the media when you're asking for data. And when you are web scraping, you can do it anonymously by masking your IP address. So the ethical way to do it is for you to identify your name and your intent through the headers that you are sending to your websites or to the websites you're requesting from. The second question that we should consider is the data for public consumption? The rule of thumb is that if the data is published by the government, then it is intended for public consumption. However, there may be some instances wherein that throughout you analyzing the web pages of government websites, you found out that there are some hidden data that is normally not viewable by an ordinary citizen, then the ethical thing to do is not to copy those data, even if you can access it through scraping. And then finally, and more importantly, you need to ask the question, are you taking something away from the owners or the original creators of the data? This is can be something like traffic or revenue. Are you repackaging the data that you copied to a better presentation so that you can take away the traffic from your competitor, for example? This is a hotly debated issue. If you have noticed, for example, whenever you're doing a Google search, there are what we call featured snippets wherein you don't have to actually visit the website because you can see the content right away at the Google search or the Google homepage. This has been debated in various blogs and in Twitter, and is still an ongoing debate because this may lower down the traffic or the people visiting those websites that produce those original content. So, as information professionals, we can take advantage of web scraping by doing these two activities. The obvious one is, of course, using web scraping for research. We can use web scraping whenever we want to investigate the digital landscape, and it is a very powerful tool. But something that we can also do is to offer it as a service to our clients. We can teach them or develop the scraper. We can teach them how to do it, or we can also develop the scraper for them when they're looking for data. The important thing is that we inform our clients, our patrons, that web scraping is an option whenever they're looking for data and information. Okay, so I hope that you learned something from this session, and I thank you so much for listening through this short lecture. I know that I have not covered everything about web scraping, but if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or send me an email, and I'm open to collaborations or projects that involves web scraping. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Hi, thank you so much, Prof. PJ Perez, for teaching us about getting data from the web using Python. It is very useful nowadays as we get a lot of information from the web. Now, I think we can do it more systematically. Okay, moving forward, I know everyone's so excited. Let us now have a discussion about web archiving from Dr. Farrah Diana Saiful Bahry.
Assalamualaikum. Hello, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the joint webinar session between University of the Philippines, School of Library and Information Studies and the Faculty of Information Management, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. Thank you to both Dean of the Faculty, Prof. Mary Grace and Prof. Sohaimi for the opportunity given. Today I would like to share some of my knowledge related to the web archiving, what it's all about and the initiative done by Malaysia. Web archiving was started on 1996 with the effort of several national library teams in Australia and Sweden with other Internet Archive Group members. In 2001, the Internet Archive launched the Wayback Machine, which it is a web-based tool that archives the entire World Wide Web. The consortium, known as International Internet Preservation (IIPC), was then established on 2003 with 12 participating institutions. Later, Archive8 had been launched in 2006. Till now, the effort and initiative on web-based archiving are expanding all over country in the world. For example, Singapore already established Web Archive Singapore, WAS, that showcases facets of Singapore life and it can be accessible publicly. Now we go to the web archiving overview. It is simply a process to make a copy of website. Start with identifying the URL and duplicating all web content together with its web architecture at particular point of time. This similar to web scraper. Web archiving normally use the web crawler tools that visit selected website, or we call it seed, on certain date and copying the content without neglecting the site originality. That archive content known as snapshot, which highly recommended to conform with the quality preserved within ISO format. WAP file. Nowadays, the size of World Wide Web been measured by zettabyte, whereby so many websites, so many web applications, social media being created day to day, and some might be decayed due to technical discrepancy or unpopularity. But it could be contain beneficial content, so the role of web archiving is to archive whichever website we may think is valuable for future references. We go to look at several purposes of web archive. Web archive can be important to companies to secure intellectual property and capture their recognition broadcast in the web spheres. The web content that capture the value of national and cultural heritage and some website content might also important as evidence in court for jurisdiction process. All of this, it could be from online news, social media sites, or even other websites that are owned by others. Sooner or later, they might need to dedicate other content in their web server, or maybe we need to pay certain fee to access it from their archive server. This reason makes us crucial to have our own web archive repository. Let me go to more detail on web archive implementation guideline. Web archive life cycles act as best practice framework applied by most group or practitioners in web archiving project. It consists of 4 circles. Start with policy circle. Then the outer circle consists of vision and objectives, resources and workflow, access, use and reuse, preservation and risk management. Then the metadata circle exists in the middle between the outer and the inner circle. The inner circles of web archiving lifecycle then consist more practical stages, such as appraisal and selection of website theme or typology, scoping the depth and breadth of each website content to archive, the data capture stages to set the timeline of web archive, storage and organization on how web archive collection been kept for easy retrieval in the future, and lastly is the quality assurance and analysis stage. The right side figure is the simplified version of web archive guide that been practicing in year 2020. To start with Web Archive implementation, there are already numerous Web Archive flow processes that can be adaptable from the previous studies and practices. Such as these two examples, one came from the Malaysian National Archive, which are simple and easy to understand, whereby the next figure show more rigor workflow that come from research-based study at the National Sanctuary Library. This detail of web selection workflow start from the selection of website address or URL, setting up metadata, preliminary analysis, harvesting, and continue until storing the web archive content. It also includes quality measurements such as quality check based on certain criteria and correction measure. Now we turn into web archive tools. One of the popular web archive tool or crawler is httrack. httrack is an early and free open source offline browser and crawler written in C and C++ programming language. Archive content can be stored arranged according to the folder system format. The archive content can be accessed back via web browser, as this tool will create one main page called index.html located in archive folder. This is an example of index.html page that acts as the main page in accessing the archive content folder via hyperlink. Another example of web archive tool that using more predominant data format to store its archive content is known as webrecorder.io. But since June 2020, it's been renamed as Conifer. Conifer able to archive and store the archive content in WARC archive format that's supported by ISO quality standard. Another simple version of web archive tool is WarcRate, which is a Chrome extension tool that simply can make a WARC file for the website to archive. However, in order to retrieve it back, it needs to be used WARC reader tools such as Whale. Whale also easy to use by anyone who wants to preserve and replay web pages. Now we go to the segment of Web Archive Initiative by Malaysia. MyGWA is an application that archives specifically on Malaysia government website to ensure the information content in the government website are accessible for future reference and research. Based on Malaysia National Archive Act 2003, Act number 629, it is compulsory for National Archive to treat government website content as national cultural and heritage collection. The slide shows specific flow process behind the MyGWA application. Next is the Malaysia Web Content related in the Web Archive collection of Library of Congress. The collection namely as Political Islam Web Archive and consists of 7 archive content. And this is the main page of MyGWA portal, which also can be accessible by the public. Here I also want to show some of Web Archive web-based repository project done by previous student in my COVID-19 pandemic last semester class. Each project need to archive as minimum 20 websites related to their chosen topic. The first project here related to archiving the art and craft story and news in Malaysia. The collection been arranging in tabular format and keep the details such as title, date archive and hyperlink to the specific web archive. The second one, the project team members choose the topic on archiving the yearly event of library in Malaysia, which is Reading Campaign Program. Here the collection been arranging by categorical division. The third sample project archive the news and website content related to the Malayan tiger, which is one of the most critically endangered species. So this web archive collected and portrayed in chronological year view. Come to the end of my knowledge sharing. Before end, there are a lot more web content need to be secure and preserved for our future generation. More effort to be done, especially we are in the information science field who value much the process of data till become knowledge. Here I share some of the research area related to the web archiving for us to explore. Thank you for your cooperation in listening the session.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Farrah Diana. I am sure our listeners learned a lot from your presentation. Okay, if you have any questions to any of our presenters, you can go to menti.com and key in the code 1553156. As you type in your question, please include the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed to. And for those of you who just joined us, this is the joint webinar of UiTM and the UP School of Library and Information Studies. For questions, again, you may post it by going to menti.com and typing in the code 1553156. Please check the previously posted questions and upvote questions you would like to be prioritized. We are very happy to have with us our colleagues from UP Dalaman, UiTM, LIS professionals all over the Philippines and in Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a good number of viewers in our YouTube channel and SLIS Facebook page. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page also, where this video is currently being streamed. That is UPSLIS on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, at this juncture, I believe we all have questions in our minds. Let us now address the questions posted by our viewers via menti.com. Okay, I think this particular question is meant for Sir PJ. Yes, Sir PJ, the question is, how can we identify ourselves while doing web scraping so that the owner of the website can see our name or information?
And that actually is a good question. No? To be honest, when I first tried doing web scraping, I didn't know that I need to identify myself. But according to the data journalism handbook, you can do it by encoding your information through the headers that you are sending. So there's a bit of technicalities in there. You can encode your information by using the request library in Python, so that when the owners of the website look at the logs, they will see that if there are anomalous traffic coming from a certain IP address, they will know that you are copying data from them. Um, but the rule of thumb also is, whenever you're going to do it, make sure that uh, you're not overwhelming their servers. So what you can do is also to add some delays when you're sending requests, and that will, in a way, mimic some form of human behavior, that you're not copying all the data all at once.
Yes. Okay, so I'll also pose this question to you. From a collection development point of view, in what instances can web scraping contribute to strengthening the collection of a library? No, in a there. So from a collection development point of view, it's like our LS55 class, no? In
Yeah.
what instances can web scraping contribute to strengthening the collection of a library?
That is another good question. And what I can think of right now is something that involves infometrics. So, web scraping will be the beginning or the starting point wherein you can collect data or metadata about your collection. But what really can answer the question about the strength of the collection would be infometrics, or measuring the applying quantitative methods in your collection. For example, you can look at what portion of your collection has more borrowers or has more citations. So you can uh, provide insights that this portion of your collection is your stronger suite. So that is kind of a simplistic answer to the question, but web scraping can contribute on the data collection part.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sir PJ. All right. Another question for you before I go to Dr. Farah. Sir PJ, what do you think are the limitations of beautiful soup in terms of web scraping?
That is also another good question. When I tried Beautiful Soup to copy thousands of web pages, the limitation of Beautiful Soup is that it is running the program synchronously. Meaning, when I run the program, I have to leave my laptop on overnight so that it will perform the copying with certain delays. But we can further improve Beautiful Soup by using asynchronous libraries in Python. So what that means is it can send multiple requests asynchronously without having to wait for the response of the server. So there are other um, libraries out there in Python, such as scrapie, and also selenium that are being used for automation. So if you feel that when you're using Beautiful Soup, you're kind of limited with flexibility, or it takes too much time, then you can explore selenium or scrapie. But if you are a beginner, I would recommend that you start with Beautiful Soup because it's the most intuitive among the three.
See. Okay, so beautiful soup it is for for those who just want to learn something, no, at the beginning level. Okay, so this question is for Dr. Farah. Dr. Farah, collecting sources online are meaningless. How do you ensure continuing access and thus engage in preservation of these resources?
Thank you for the questions. Uh, um, as we know, nowadays everything in online and
Mm-hmm.
so many content, and we are measuring it using terabyte. So many. So um, one of the limitation or challenge in web archiving is actually the storage and also the retrieval parts. So normally that's why the web archiving project need to be run with huge team and good resource. For example, in terms of budgeting, in terms of how to maintain the space or in the storage purposes. So normally that's why the effort is come from the government. For example, we need to have more budget in order to maintain keep archiving all the content, especially for the important contents like the government websites, the informations in the library, in our national library. That one.
Okay, yes. Yes. Another question for you, Dr. Farah.
Mhm.
Can you share some metadata best practices for web archiving? So, best practices for web archiving, like metadata best practices for web archiving.
I can.
Yeah.
I think the most common one is the one just now, the one that use ISO format or origin formats, which is ISO marks works file. Uh, so that one normally is confirmed. It can be retrieved in what other uh, formats, and it also can what we say secure the originality of the original contents. So the what format is advisable.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Farah. So, to our viewers, if you have other questions, you may post it by going to menti.com and typing in the code 1553156. There. So, I'm just looking at our Menti website if there are other questions.
Mom Rhea,
Oh, yes, Sir PJ.
I actually have a question to Dr. Farah because I was
Okay.
listening to her presentation, and I would like to
Right.
commend the Malaysian government for having an initiative to archive their website. And I think that is something that our Philippine government can benefit as well in the future. But I have this question because right now, especially during the pandemic, we experience some issues wherein our government officials are posting information to their website, but also to their social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter. But uh, then suddenly they will retract the information.
Mm.
I believe some of our viewers can relate to that because, and what people usually do is that they screenshot those posts. So I guess my question is there a way that we can archive those very ephemeral record, those Facebook posts, those Twitter, the tweets of our government officials?
Yeah, I take a look because the initiative taken in Malaysia government nowadays is they just archive whatever government websites. But recently, due to the COVID-19, yes, they are also archiving the COVID-19 news.
that exposed or published by the our control agency. We call it as MKN. So, but in terms of the screenshot or something else, I'm not sure whether they all cater for it, because normally if I take a look, the practice wise in web archiving, we the what they crawl is they crawl the real website, not only the object or the features in the web archive, not only the features of the web or the web object itself. They will archive the whole website. So it's good actually. Let's say we can apply when there is a fake news, right? So we need to maintain the real website, the originality of the website. So we can ask our public to go to the real website, the ministry website or the other government agency websites.
Okay, you have other questions, PJ?
Yeah, I think
For Dr.
I agree that we should also, aside from web archiving, it should also be accompanied with information literacy to tell our citizens where reliable information can really be accessed. So I hope that we also have that national web archiving initiative in the future.
Yes, I agree, PJ. So let's wait for our government to do that. Okay, we have another question for Dr. Farah. What tools can we use to perform big data discovery on web archives?
Wow.
What tools can we use to perform big data discovery on web archives?
Big data discovery. Um, let's say web archiving concept, they can archive whatever we call it as a surface web. It means like a spreadsheets or any normal websites, but web archiving cannot be done or cannot archive the dark site or dark we call it a dark site. Mean the
Okay.
dark side normally the one that have a login, the user ID and password. So that one, the web archiving still cannot do. But however, with the increase of tools or the advanced or powerful programming language, yeah, perhaps the growth in terms of scraping, web scraping, can be done in order to crawl more, go deeper into the objective just now, to in order to archive the web big data, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Another question for you, Dr. Farah. Is there any standard we need to follow in doing web archiving? Standards that we need to follow in doing web archiving?
It's not, we can call it as a
Mhm.
standard, but just now I showed the frameworks, the framework or the a good framework to follow. Just now the web archiving life cycles, that's the
Yeah.
complete standard that normally been used, been advised by the pioneer practitioner in the web archiving throughout over the world. Example, the from the consortium team member IPC just now. So um, um, they all recommend us to use that web archiving life cycles.
I
That
see.
cover the policy
Yeah.
until the practicality or until the technicality of the process itself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Farah. Just one question here is asking for your opinion. If all information professionals practiced web archiving, are we not in danger of collecting the same things, making our efforts redundant? Mm.
If the web archiving life cycle also they have a part or stages, we need
Mm.
to seek approvals, and this is a process lah. It have a process to seek approval first, and without the acknowledgement or authorization from the owner of the website, we also cannot do the web archiving. For example, the one that the webs or application that have the authentication, right, password and login. So the
Right.
archiving cannot do.
Yes, Dr. Farrah, you mentioned the efforts of the Malaysian government in web archiving. What particular agency in Malaysia is web archiving under?
Currently, the one that actively do is the Malaysian National Archive itself.
Oh, so the Malaysian National Archives
Uh,
is ahead
yeah,
in doing this web archiving.
for the government website.
I
But there
see.
is also one library, one national
Mhm.
library in Sarawak, which is Pustaka. They also
Mhm.
do the archiving for the
Yeah.
Sarawak heritage.
Ah, so Sarawak. I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think we have the last question here for Dr. Farah. How do you manage different types of media in the same archive?
As normally when we do archive using tools like HT-Track, uh, we can get all the web pictures. We can get the video, we can get the image, whatever content in the website. So from there, we can classify it accordingly and put it in the repository. Means we need to develop a web archive repository. That's another story. So that is depends on how we want to keep or store the web archive content itself.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Farah and Professor Paul Jason Perez. Thank you so much for answering our viewers' questions. I'm looking now at Menti, and I think we've answered all the questions posted by our viewers. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Farah Diana, and Professor PJ Perez. We wish you success in all of your teaching and other career endeavors. At this point, we would like to call on the Dean of the University of the Philippines School of Library and Information Studies, Professor Mary Grace P. Golfo-Barcelona, to give the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Professor Apolinario. Before finally closing this juncture, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who made this joint webinar possible. The UiTM team, led by Dr. Sohaimi Zakaria, the Dean of the Faculty of Information Management, Dr. Farrah Diana Saiful Bahry, one of our speakers, Jeff, Cass, and Marl, our very own SLIS team led by Professor Rhea Apolinario, our moderator for today's event, Assistant Professor Paul Jason Perez, who also shared his knowledge and expertise on web scraping. Our technical people, Professor Nathan, Professor Mark, Professor Dan, Prof. Igor, and the rest of the SLIS faculty members and staff. Our friends and colleagues from Malaysia and the Philippines and other parts of the globe who watched and joined us. Thank you very much. The great Albert Einstein said, "In the midst of every crisis lies an opportunity." A cliche, yes, but made very true in what just inspiringly materialized between UiTM and UP SLIS. The pandemic has greatly affected our operation and mobility. But with the restrictions that came with the required health protocols to ensure the safety of people all over the world, an opportunity to collaborate remotely was presented to us. This new normal actually got us moving to break the barrier that this virus has placed between nations and institutions. No matter the physical distance, we get to work together towards the attainment of common goals. Because as members of iSchool, UiTM and UPSLIS share a common goal to advance the information field. We also share with other iSchool members a fundamental interest in the relationships among information, people, and technology. This afternoon's event is a proof of the shared endeavor. Dr. Bahry discussed the importance of web archiving, while Assistant Professor Perez showed us how we can use a programming language called Python in extracting data from the web. Both speakers allowed us to see further how users of information, like any one of us, can maximize the gathering of data and information from the web. As Dean Sohaimi mentioned, this is just a run-up to more collaborations between our schools. We look forward to more of this as we endeavor to share knowledge and expertise to students, colleagues in the academe, and in other allied information professionals all over the world. Thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Maraming salamat. A pleasant afternoon to all.
Again, thank you so much, Dean Grace and Dean Sohaimi, for making this joint webinar of UP SLIS and UiTM possible. To our speakers, Professor Perez and Dr. Farrah Diana, thank you for sharing with us your expertise in web scraping and web archiving. To all our viewers, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you all had meaningful takeaways from this webinar. Thank you too to our faculty members from UP SLIS and UiTM for making this event possible. Special shout out to Professors Nathan Isip and Mark Santos for handling the tech side of this event. Please don't forget to register using the link to be shown on screen to receive your certificates. If you missed portions of this webinar, you may rewatch it as a Facebook video or check our YouTube channel at UPSLIS. For updates on our upcoming activities, please follow us at our official Facebook page, UPSLIS, or visit our website, slis.upd.edu.ph. Please join us again on November as we have the SLIS Lecture Series 2020 Envisioning Critical Librarianship for the Philippines by Emily Drabinski, Associate Professor and Critical Pedagogy Librarian, Graduate Center of the City University of New York. Emily Drabinski will talk about classifying difference critical librarianship in a global context. This will be on November 18, 2020, Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the morning, Philippine time, in our UPSLIS Facebook page and YouTube channel. This event is in celebration of the 59th anniversary of UPSLIS and the 30th Library and Information Services Month. And that concludes our first joint webinar of UPSLIS and UiTM. Please join us again in our future events and webinars. Once again, this is Rhea Rowena Apolinario, your host and moderator, wishing you all the best. See you all soon and take care. Terima kasih.